There you are.
Hello.
Awesome. Hi. Now watch this branding element. Can you see? Wait, nope, not that. Look at that. Well, I can barely see it, but it's there. How are you?
That's really fancy. It's like double branding.
Thanks. Me and Dee got me and Amanda. God, see, I don't even know what to call you. What do I call you right now?
My Cincinnati lifestyle life, I guess my first decade, that it's Mandy. And then my professional world, I guess it turned back to my original name, which is Amanda.
Yeah, your mom and dad only.
My family all calls me Mandy. They get a little confused when they hear the word Amanda.
You know, I'm not comfortable calling you both either, right? So I called you D.
Which is fine, because I think we've known each other since I was
2.5.
2, yeah.
Yeah, 2.5. Yeah, 2.5, 3. Yeah, you're probably, you're probably my oldest friend, right? Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. Nuts. Awesome. Well, thank you for doing this with me. We talked about it a little bit, and we finally got it here. I appreciate it. And you're like so busy. Crazy. So I caught you a little bit of a break, and we don't have to do it in Iceland because that's where you're at now.
Yeah.
5 hours ahead. So will you take a second and give me your long resume?
Ooh.
Tell me who you are. You don't have to give it all, but just tell me who you are.
Okay. So I've done a lot of things, and people look at my resume and say, "What the heck?" So I started off, and I started off in the airline industry, working in operations and customer service. Climbed the ladder up there corporately, and then decided I needed to learn a little bit more about tech, and went into the tech world with Career Builder, and had oversight of the North American operations there in the recruiting and staffing world. So that was kind of developing online applications and career development stuff, which is actually really exciting for me. I enjoy helping people connect to what their passion is. And then I kind of got tired of the corporate world and decided to go off on my own, and purchased a restaurant in San Francisco and ran that for a couple of years. A year later, purchased another one in Oakland. So I had 2 going on in Cali at the same time. Very fortunate to be out of restaurants before COVID happened. Mm-hmm. And then I decided that it was time to flip the switch on the whole corporate thing and go into climate change.
Gosh. So what are you doing?
So, well, from a consulting standpoint, I'm helping corporations integrate the 17 Sustainable Development Goals into their policies and procedures. So if you look at it from the triple bottom line financial sector, corporations are measured on people, planet, and profit. And so I take the SDGs and help them put that into their systems to make a circular economy through their supply chain, as well as work on the people part of it. How do you bring more equity within the corporation? And now I'm getting another master's in climate change so that I can maybe get more on the science side of it all.
So is this business, this company you're working for, it's not your company?
No. It's
you got hired out.
It's 2 of my friends that work with implementing Salesforce technologies. And so I help and bring into the sustainability side of it.
Wow. So quick question before we get into this, because this is going to lead into what we're talking about. You're working with corporations. Are these, first of all, are they American corporations or are they global?
They're, some mostly medium size right now. So they've got a little skin in the game globally, but no, mostly locally.
And is there a lot of buy-in? Are they doing this because they have to, or are they doing this because, are they trying to get ahead of the game? What is their overall, what is their motive?
So I think in the last 5 years, there's been like a groundswell of companies trying to be better and do better. And I think, when we put out of the Paris Agreement, a lot of the companies turned around and said, no, we're still in. So there is a coalition there. And with that coalition, they had to sign into the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which is 195 members around the globe are involved in that.
Who wrote that?
The United Nations.
Okay.
That's part of the UNFCCC as well as part of the Paris Agreement of, okay, how do we make these, okay, the Paris Agreement is, okay, what are we going to do about it? But how are we going to do it is the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So like Number 1 is no poverty, and number 13 is climate change. So we can't start working on climate change until we work on equitable and social justice.
Wow. Under capitalism? Now we don't have to get into that debate.
Yeah, that makes it a little tough, but it also makes it a little bit of an opportunity.
The only reason I say that is right now in one of the cool things about being a teacher is we are teaching the Industrial Revolution, and I never teach the same way twice. So I always go in and try to learn more and more and more every year. And so really this year, my focus has been Marxism, and to learn, I always knew what it was and I teach it. And so I have a pretty good knowledge, but I'm really digging in this year. And just to say that, hey, and we're getting off topic, but that's okay. The inherent problems, the problems with poverty, right, or externalities such as climate change, they're built into the system to not work, right? Poverty is part of this capitalistic system. You're not going to be able to get rid of it in capitalism because it has to be there. Essentially, your profit motive, and you want to keep running efficiently. You got to pay your labor force pretty low to please somebody.
Does it though? Does it have to work that way?
Capitalism does, sure, doesn't it?
I don't know if I necessarily believe that. I mean, I get the theories and so forth, but I think you can still have equity and growth, which is part of capitalism, right? You want economic growth. I think you can bring up Switzerland does it. Iceland does it. I mean, there's a 1 in 7 to the highest to the bottom, and they make sure, and it's not socialist.
So, okay. So how do they, so let's take externalities, for example. And I don't know what, maybe Switzerland and Iceland, I don't think they do have a very big poverty problem. So you could be right. They must be handling it some way. But what about externalities where they play no role, in a profit motive where you're trying to maximize profit, and run efficiently? Where does climate change come into that, to the shareholders? Where do they care about that? Why would they care about that? Except for public approval, but you can lie.
At some point it's going to come back and impact, if your consumers become more conscious, if your buying power, your supply power has to change. Like, I really think that corporations are starting to be better stewards of it.
I see it. No, I see it. I mean, you see it with Black Lives Matter on commercials, and that makes me feel awesome. There's no reason they don't have to do that. They're taking a risk. I love to see it. I think they're getting more public
on that. And same thing on climate change. It's too little, too late.
Right.
Like that should have been done a long time ago.
But my thing is we haven't seen salary increase in this country for 30 some years, right? The stagnant wages of all levels, except for CEOs, essentially, or upper management levels, stagnant wages for 30. And that just shows that it's efficiency. It's about bottom line. It's about profit, bottom dollar. To say that, hey, we're going to fix this model.
CEOs on each other, board members, and tapping each other on the shoulders from a market standpoint.
Right. So I see what you're saying. In pure, I guess what we're arguing here, my thing is almost pure capitalism and what a lot of the right see as capitalism, compared to what you and I may see as a better sort of capitalism, where government does have a say, where you are trying to make things more equitable. And there's a lot of individual leaders that just have that mindset because they want a better future, right? They're not pure capitalists in their mind. We still have a lot of those, but maybe we're getting some new people that are starting to run these companies that just want to be better people too. I don't know. But
I think there's also a financial sector that's coming involved into this that's starting to hold accountability to it. So if you look at like BlackRock, so they are probably the largest investment management firm, right? And on the stock market, they will say that CEOs, and they've been probably saying this past 5 years, if you do not write a good ESG, environmental, social, and governance, then we will show you as a failure and we will tick you down on the stock market. So that ESG is same as corporate social responsibility, which comes the same thing as triple bottom line. I tend to call it people, planet, profit, because I think it gives it a little more like sensitivity to it. Like there are people involved and you do have to do good things to make sure the environment and the planet is moving forward. And then the profit piece, like you can't be a sustainable business or you can't be in business if you're not making a profit.
Right. That's the bottom line. Right. And there's always been the Hawthorne effect, right? Where, that's always been a part of capitalism too, is if you're treating your employees like crap, you're going to get less efficiency out of them in the first place. So treat them better. So there is some built in. I think just as an overall system, you're working harder to get these things than you might in another system.
Yes. Yeah. No, I can see that. Well, I mean, I think there's been a shift in our corporate culture overall, probably the past 15 years. We outsourced a lot. We shut down, we downsized, we outsourced like 20 years, put it all over to China. And then we started to say, oh, wait, we're not getting as much efficiency as we need, and we need to bring it back. And that's when we kind of like the tech boom come through.
We realized a lot of things. You say, hey, we want to run efficiently. Look, we can pay Chinese people a fraction. But then you realize, wait, okay, now not only are we losing efficiency in the worker, but now we're losing purchasing power in our own employees too, to buy the things that we're creating. They haven't made enough of an impact to make major changes, but you're right. I think we're starting to maybe head back in the right direction, and we'll see. But let's get to our book.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there we go.
The book.
You what?
I said I think that conversation has a lot to do with the book.
It is. That's why I let it go, because it really is. So we, Dee Dee, Amanda, Mandy and I, we chose a book called Merchants of Doubt: How a Handful of Scientists Obscured the Truth on Issues from Tobacco Smoke to Climate Change, from Naomi Oreskes. Do you know how to say her name? Oreskes. And Eric M. Conway.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read just a little bit of the back. Merchants of Doubt has been praised and attacked around the world for reasons easy to understand. The book tells us with brutal clarity the disquieting story of how a loose-knit group of high-level scientists and scientific advisors with deep connections in politics and industry ran effective campaigns to mislead the public and deny well-established scientific knowledge over 4 decades. I think I can just leave it there. There's more. But yeah, this book, you contacted me in we were just touching base, and you said something like, this book is disappointing. It was a D word. I don't know, was it disappointing or no? What did you say? Would you remember what you said?
No, I don't, but I know that I had to like put it down 3 times because I was like so angry. I was aggravated with it.
Right. Explain that. Why?
Well, how could we allow that to happen? First of all, like, the knowledge was there. The tobacco industry knew what they were doing, and they put a strategy together to deceive and to outright lie. And we bought it. We bought into it just by listening to the small few. So you bark, you bully.
Yep.
It kind of like, it was the parallels of what's going on today. Like, I haven't owned a television in 10 years. There's a reason for that. It's all garbage.
Well, I do the same. I don't have cable. I haven't had cable in 10 years or any station. So I've never watched news or cable news at all. Same way as you. I watch Netflix. So if I want to watch, I don't know, some stupid show, I do. But yeah, same way.
Your own bubble, right?
Right. Exactly. Right. You have to. So yeah, the disappointing part, I think, is the biggest thing too. And I had to put it down. Because I think what we both see in that is a frustration. We're going to talk about that too, of how do we let this happen? And then 2, we see it going on right now in front of our faces. The biggest frustration is you are getting into, how does this, let me tell you my side, and then I think you're going to feel the same way. As a teacher, my whole job is to stop this from happening. Right. My whole job is for students not to learn dates or certain names. Right. It's to give them, I do believe it's definitions, big time definitions and overall ideas, and to and now a job that did not exist 20 years ago in teaching that does now is to it existed, but not to this level, is to understand sources. What source can you trust? Why you shouldn't trust some, stay away from some, and to kind of work your way through that. And so when you have this, that's one, it threw me off, that this starts, in the 1960s and 70s. So it's been going on a very long time. And then 2, when you see what's going on today, my biggest disappointment was just that as a society, you got I'm going to go with a low number. I'm going to be conservative here, low, and say 50% of society doesn't have any skills to decipher truth from fact, or doesn't care, just wants to be tribal, just wants to play on a team, or sticks just to one goal. I don't know, one goal or one ideal, and sticks to it, and everything else doesn't matter, right?
So I think we're going to have to narrow that down to the United States, which is only 4% of the population.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I will, because
this is not how other countries think.
Well, that's good. That makes me feel better.
They don't feel there's a debate on climate change. They know climate change is real. They're taking action. They have government policies in place. They have local institutions that are doing things. They've got schools that are doing things, communities that are doing things. Like, it's totally different than what's in our.
That's so good to have that, to know that somewhere out there they're doing it. But
you make a good point about you teaching it, your sources. So credibility goes a long way. These sources, when you see the same person talking about there's experts in 5 different categories, you can't be an expert in everything. Like, the book pretty much shows the same characters over and over again. That should have been a red flag to anyone.
Well, the fact that no one who believes their side could probably name one of those 10 scientists, right? Or 5 scientists, Fred Seitz or Fred Singer, who is seen time and time again. They are so diehard for these guys in their argument, but none of them could name them. But to go back to my question, though, as a teacher, that's the disappointing part. That's why I had to put this down. It's like, wow, am I getting through to anybody? But you're going into this as a career, right?
Yeah.
So my question to you is, you are one of these scientists, or you're working with the data again, and you have to tell and spread this. How do you feel knowing that it's going to be this career you're getting to is going to be a fight, and it shouldn't be a fight, I guess, is my thing.
Well,
that's the whole thing. This shouldn't be an argument.
If I went into U.S. policy.
Okay.
So here's the other thing is, I have the private sector background so that I can be the communicator for the scientists. So I may not be the PhD, but doing the actual scientists, but I am doing the research. I am working with the scientists, and I will be the one to help be able to communicate that message. Scientists are not the greatest communicators. You kind of got that in his book, right? James, 1980s. And Ben Sanders, they slaughtered them. What they did is they attacked their personalities, and they didn't know how to refute, because they're like, wait, I just want to do research. I just want to do science. Same thing in the tech world. So if you look at a corporation in technology, you've got the BAs who are the communicators, and you've got the developers who are the ones that I'm doing the fact finding. I'm finding the truth. Here's the data, and they don't know how to communicate it. So,
and not only that, but they're like me. They're naive. And I want to this was taken from the book. One of the scientists, and I forget who it was, but one of them, he said, this is how it's supposed to work. People are going to do the right thing once they know. If I just get the science out there, and then the media picks it up, then the politicians should listen to the people in the media, and then we're going to solve this problem. And the naivete of that, and me, because I think that's how me as a teacher is too. If I just show these kids the facts, or lead them to how to find their own facts, we're going to solve this problem. But the thing you're not taking into consideration, these scientists big time, because they got steamrolled, like you said, and attacked personally. But they don't take into consideration that there is billions of dollars to fight you and push this back in any way, shape, or form. Right?
Yes. Well, and science has proven that the conservative brain ticks off of fear. So exaggerated fear response. Right. So if you look at the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Is that why they all have guns on their waist at all times?
Probably.
Well, yeah, it is. I'll give you the answer. Yes.
Well, but that goes also into the unaware, misinformed, right? Mm-hmm. So the Trump-driven news cycles that we have, I believe that Trump made it into presidency because the U.S. population is used to watching him on television, and they had a lot of fun seeing "you're fired, you're fired." So it's easily to bring him onto the new television system, which is our Trump-driven news cycles. Mm-hmm. And he is able to do the puppet mastery to the conservative brain, and they're able to react in fear. He's fear-mongering, the same thing as these scientists did with doubt-mongering.
Yeah. No, and he's using one of the strategies here, which is is the freedom. The freedom is a strategy of this, which I thought was, I mean, it's pretty genius because you and I remember going back to the two big debates for us growing up that I remember. Well, ozone was early. I didn't really know what was going on, but I remember that debate. But the smoking debate causes cancer when we were younger, but the secondhand smoke was a big one. Secondhand smoke was when we were getting older, high school, college, maybe even a little bit later. And I tell my students this all the time. I said, when I was in your seats, if you would have asked the students, how many of you smoking cause cancer, how many you think secondhand smoke harms other people, I said it would have been, most of the kids would have said no. It's, we would have been all bought same way.
Yep.
And to now ask that question, you all look at me like, wow, why was that even a question back then? How did you not know that? And I'm saying, well, the money and the things put in. But if I ask the same thing about climate change, how many of you are sure humans cause climate change? They're still, they're 50-50, I don't know. And I can't, I have to be totally unbiased in front of the classroom. So I don't be like, well, I do say this. Actually, I take that back about climate change. Most things I say, hey, this is just facts. I'm only going through facts. But with climate change, I say there is no debate. This has been settled science since 1979. 1979, this has been settled,
Yes.
And we still act like it's unsettled. But I don't know.
Well, the freedom one, that is a big U.S. tactic in many ways, right? As soon as you throw actually, when you go around Cincinnati, it's interesting to see all the flags that are in people's yards.
Yeah, you mentioned that when you came to visit back in August or September. Yeah, you said, it's crazy driving around. You don't see this anywhere else in the world, the amount of flags all around.
Yeah, flagpoles in the yards. And that's the birth of a nation strategy that actually happened back in the early 1900s and then has come through and was picked up in the tobacco strategy as part of their playbook.
Right. You can't, and that's, I lost my train of thought with the kids, but you're exactly right. The freedom thing is where they're saying, and there's so many strands. They say, I wrote down the quotes. This is how freedom dies, they say, or what will they regulate next? They're going to take more from us, or I'm an adult. I could make my own decisions. I don't need anyone making decisions for me. Or why are they against freedom? Or obviously the whole communism thing. This is a communist country, or they call them freedom-loving Americans, right? And all those things do hit a nerve in people, right?
But for a person that has a conservative brain, that induces fear and they just react. So misinformed, unaware reaction.
Right. I'm going to stop this right now. The other strategies they had, and I made a list of them. So, and the thing is when they list them, or they didn't actually make a list. I think they do at one point. I want to talk about that in a second. But I went down and I was making a list as I went, and it's just so crazy, these strategies, and they are genius. These guys are smart guys. Singer and all these guys. I want to talk about why they did in a second. But their strategies were they manufacture doubt. Yes. Let's just make people doubt it. You question the science. You just say, well, I'm not going to say you're wrong, but let me question it. Create controversy.
Yep.
You find friendly scientists. And I want to ask, let's actually, I want to get back into strategies though first. Why are they able to find scientists that agree against accepted science? Well, how are they able to? Why were they able to get Fred Singer and those? That's what my biggest question. These people say, well, not all scientists agree. Well, do you realize they're talking about like 10 guys? They're all paid by this industry, whether you want to say the fossil fuel industry or the tobacco industry. Why do they do that?
Field has a bad or a good, right? There's some of us can be motivated by money, and some of us can be motivated by doing good. So these guys had two motivations. Well, I call it motivation and tension. So their motivation was to delay regulation. Their intention was to put the doubt sprinkles in and get the reward in forms of monetary value. Right. If you look at every single person that has been involved in this, even if you go into the media part, right? So when you dig deeper and look at the media and the lobbyists, they were paid off $200 an hour.
Yeah. Yes.
$200 an hour.
An hour.
Some people can be bought.
Well, that too, but I think Each one of them had a third little reason. There was something individualistic with each one of them. And a lot of these scientists were like physicists from the Cold War. They helped actually with the Manhattan Project and building the nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them were so scared. They actually built into the freedom argument we talked about before,
yes.
that they actually didn't see it as like a propaganda thing to do it. They believed that if we didn't let people choose these things, that they were losing their freedom because they were so afraid of communist Soviet Union.
Yeah. So yes, and in the book, I got that with, especially with Seitz. Seitz was so afraid of communism. He's the one that built the atomic bomb. But Singer, I kind of had to dig deeper into him because I was like, man, he's playing every part of the field. He's part of the NRCC, which is, and he replicates
the nitpicks
document exactly the same. So he's being so deceitful. But if you watch a video now that he's retired, he goes, cancer. I'm not an expert on cancer. Why would I speak to you about cancer?
Right. He says, why does everybody ask me about that? It's like, do you realize your role? Oh, yeah, because I watched a bunch of videos too. He says, why, when I'm talking about climate change, why are you guys bringing up cancer? And it's like, dude, because you caused a lot of shit. You caused people to die, man. But I think he just was, and I think they mentioned something in the book too. He just was an outsider. Somebody, they didn't like him in those circles. And so I think he was just a jerk. And so he did it to spite them, just to, be like, all right, I'll make money and I'll screw you guys back. But you need those guys, and there's more of them that come up. I mean, every generation is given.
Well, look at Mark Morano. He's on.
Right, that's what I was thinking. I couldn't think of his name.
On every news outlet, right? He's on CNN. He's on Fox. They all trust him, whatever. But he will sit there and tell you, I just do it for the fun. I go attack
he loves
personality, and no one's going to stand up to me. He's like, I eat them alive, and I love it, and I fearmonger him all day.
And how he can, I mean, how he can go to sleep at night just knowing what he's doing to society. But I think it's just, they say some of the most successful CEOs and people like that, he's a sociopath. He just, there's something in his brain that lacks empathy and lacks dealing with people. And so he's like, look at me, I'm rolling, I'm successful, where most people would say, yeah, I can't get success doing what you're doing. It's low down dirty. Where he's like, well, I love it. This is fun.
I know. And he goes, and I'm not even an expert in anything. He's like, the media just buys into me. So I just do it. It's like being on my own TV show.
The scary thing is, I'm thinking in my mind is, even if, and this is where the biggest problem lies, is if we took him and showed him to people that believe him, like that watch his he's with a think tank, right? Watch him on Fox News or whatever, and said, here's what he says. He admits this. How many of them would turn the corner and say, man, I want to think about this? And the answer is none.
None.
We have a bigger issue than this. I think the problem at first was, hey, let's make people doubt the science. But now we're so tribal. It's an easy job. You don't even really have to do that much. You just tell them what you want them to believe, and they're going to say, fine, well, you're on our team. All right, I got your back. That's the scary part.
Yeah.
That's where I think we've come to that point where before it was like, man, if you just got people the science, quit. And the right knew that. Let's spend billions of dollars trying to fight this science, But now it's like, well, we don't even have to do that because those facts don't matter. And that brought me to another thing: is the book they wrote. That blew my mind. Do you remember what was it called? It was Bad Science. Look at you.
Science, yeah.
Every time I have the worst memory. Every time I do a book club with somebody, it's like you guys are like, bam, naming every name, every character, every little thing, and I'm
a lot of this matters too in my world right now too.
Right.
So he's got the Marshall.
So you've heard of Bad Science before?
Yeah, and you can go on the Marshall Institute. It's there. Cato Institute. It's there.
God.
Yeah. So
a resource book, a book for fact fighting.
Yep.
Just that there's a book for fact fighting out there.
Yes.
Should scare people. But like I said, and before, if this were 5 years ago, I'd be like, I'm going to share this book on the internet, and I want to show everybody that this book exists. And then they're all going to be like, oh, my side's bad. I'm going to learn stuff. But no, of course not.
West.
But and you can put it out there. Just the fact that you could distribute this, and know that it's going to sell and people are going to listen to it. That just shows enough. That's a message enough to where we've come in society, right?
Well, the internet can put you into many bad places if you don't look at your sources.
Oh man, that's why I got it. Yeah, that was another reason I had to get off Facebook. But yeah, bad science blew my mind. Let me just go over the other couple strategies they used. They attacked the messenger, like you said, where you could be mean and brutal. Delay regulation, that's one of their goals.
I think
go ahead.
Shift the blame.
Shift the blame. Yep. Okay. I have that here too. And independent voices. And this is what I want to talk to. This is what we were just talking about with these guys. But think tanks have always been, I've been a little iffy. Think tanks, I taught government and I taught what think tanks are. I didn't realize that the Marshall Institute was one of the main first ones. And so now my perspective of think tanks is just totally negative. I don't know if there couldn't be a good one now after that, because then you see the Cato Institute, like you said, and what is it? What's the home? What is the other one? The Homestead or?
Oh yeah, that one's Heartland.
Heartland.
That one's pretty big.
Yeah, and then Americans for Prosperity. Right. Well, and so
Americans for Prosperity. Yeah, that one's a little scary.
Well, that was one that started the Tea Party, I think, pretty much. But man, these think tanks, I guess I'm wondering how do you perceive them from your industry? Are there good ones? Is it just a fight of the left and the right? Are these think tanks that just are? I almost look at them now as just party propaganda units, right?
Well, so these ones were started out of this strategy. So the think tank is an old corporate slogan jargon, right. And people have kind of moved away from that. But having institutions behind the data, the information is important, right? You've got to work with governments, corporations, and institutions in order to, push policies
But that's just so that it looks like a third party. Is that correct?
Yes, that's all these created third parties to look like they're not associated.
They're objective,
right?
To look objective,
and because they took the typical economic playbook. You do have to have institutions behind you in order to vet the information and put the research forward. That's where your R&D comes from.
Gotcha.
So all the other universities like Yale and Harvard, who are actually credible sources. So the Marshall Institute and things,
I get you. So these are institutions in place of a standard old university.
Yes.
Even though, I don't know if you've been paying attention lately, Stanford, as an local with politics, has lost a lot of, not politics, with COVID, has lost a lot of credibility. The big news now is Stanford University, who was always one that you could trust, and both sides very objective.
Pretty high up in the medical field too.
Yeah, has been putting out very bad information as far as COVID goes. Really bad, where their people are starting to question, where is this coming from? Who is running this show? Yeah, it's really bad.
So deceitful reporting?
Yeah.
I think that's another part of their strategy is the mirror reports, the third-party allies. Deceitful reporting is the biggest, the last and final.
Well, yeah, the defeats and that's another topic I want to talk about, the fairness doctrine, right?
Yes.
We got deceitful reporting, which is where they know the truth, and then they're very biased. We have, now that with internet and the amount of technology, you can create one tomorrow, and you can have the Blaze or these very deceitful reporting sites. But back when you only had a few media sources, this fairness doctrine came in, and that seemed to me, it seems like a good thing at first. You got to present both sides of the issue equally. And these guys were smart. When there wasn't an issue and there was no debate, they used the fairness doctrine for their
to create argument. A debate.
Yeah.
Or to create the illusion of a debate. Because
there
has been no debate over this. It's 99.9% of scientists, with the exception of Seitz and Singer, know that anthropogenic climate change is an issue.
Right. But to now say, hey, this is unsettled science, or not all, we're still working on, we got to work this out.
Or the politician's phrase, we don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm not a scientist. Right.
Yeah.
That's the worst one. Yeah. We don't know, or I'm not a scientist. It's we know you're not a scientist. You're a politician. You're supposed to follow, I did another book club pretty recently with a buddy of mine called, The Death of Expertise, a great, phenomenal book. Along the same lines, this one gets very much more specific about strategies, but that one just talks about, hey, how no one trusts these scientists anymore. Hey, just ignore them. Those guys all have an agenda, or I'm just as smart as he is because I got the internet in front of me. Very weird times we're at right now.
Well, yeah, we have the WebMD. I'm my own doctor.
Right.
I trust my holistic medicine more than my scientific medicine.
Right. Scary. Who thought, that you'd get to this point where all of the information, a lot of information's at our fingertips, and we become so backwards,
Well, I do believe that you have to be an advocate for yourself.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
For your health, for whatever. And especially when it comes to information. Problem is, in the US, we only go to the surface level, and we allow the media outlets and the politicians to tell us what we should be thinking.
Yeah, you need to know where to look and who to trust. Right.
Go to the evidence, ask the why, and then find your sources and references.
Right. Exactly. And make sure, and how do you find a good source? I mean, that's huge. I wish we just had classes for
peer-reviewed sources.
Right, exactly. What is that? Well, that's another part of this thing. How they were getting. How many times do we read in this book the peer-reviewed sources, and they would just be low down and dirty, and they'd get in and add an appendix or introduction that changed the whole idea, the whole paper.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Most of the time, there's people either passed away or were never allowed to be back.
Right, that one poor guy. Right.
The government's like that. You take this over. So. Yeah.
Right. Like, what was his? I don't remember his name. You'll probably remember Al Gore's mentor.
I do not remember his name.
Good. I'm glad you don't. Thank you.
I should remember that one, but I do.
But that poor guy, he's dying. He's had like strokes and stuff. And was it Seitz? I think it was Seitz. Seitz was trying to write this paper on climate change and trying to change his meaning and his thoughts, and then at the end the guy dies, and then he puts the paper out, and now everybody's like, well, this smart guy said this. So, and Al Gore's like, no, and everybody else in the scientific community is like, no.
Well, not only that, his family was losing in court, lost money after money trying to fight the battle for his reputation.
Right. It was horrible. Yeah, this guy worked his whole life, and this guy can change a couple things and said he wrote it. That's crazy. But that's another point that I wanted to say is these guys win. They are smart. You got to hand them that. And that they win because even if they get it not right in these journals, they know that that's not really the fight for scientists. Blah. Yeah, you may win on facts. They're always going to win on facts. But as long as they can get their story in the mass media, they won. So you could fix it. Let's say you say on the mass, you'd lie real big and you send that lie out to mass media, the Wall Street Journal, which just, I have so much less respect for them after all these stories that they put out and all the op-eds they let go.
Well, they have corporate funders too.
Right. Yeah. And then they let that out there. And then guess what? Then they say, okay, we can fix it now in a periodical. It may be peer reviewed, but it may not. It may just be a scientific periodical that only, X small percentage of the population would even know exists. And so the major public just sees that as the end of the argument and not see the end of the argument that's posted in the scientific.
Well, the Wall Street Journal is trying to make a comeback. They are posting all of the regulation that Trump has changed during his administration against climate change.
Good.
I think they're up to like 138 policies that they have listed out there now. So that people can see them, read them, and understand what they are. So they are trying to bring their reputation back a little bit.
Yeah, I think, and we're going to have to wrap this up in a second, but I think the reason we both put it down is there's not a lot of, what optimism do you have? Do you have any? You're working in this field. Thank you. I thank you very much. We got it. Actually, I'm going to backtrack a minute. In 1979, they said we need to act now. And the right's main strategy, obviously, is to delay. And their main thing was say, let's wait and see. And so we can now fast forward. We're in 2020, and we see it. We see it in front of our eyes, and most people are coming to see it. So, as far as I think, you still have a lot of people that don't see it, don't want to see it. Tribalism. Where are we now? How do you feel about things?
So
about public, I'm talking about not where we're going to get.
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
The United States is only 4% of the population, and 60% of that 4%
I'm going to remember that now.
does believe in climate change.
Right.
I was, in Iceland. We're up in the Arctic. That is where your oxygen comes from. So it is serious up there. We saw it firsthand. We did hands-on research, and it's the time to act. I mean, we're acting too little too late, actually. Right. And the IPCC report is very conservative in what it is telling us. So I think if we don't act, we're going to be in big trouble, and we're going to see great migrations. We're going to see islands disappear. I think it goes deeper than that. People are going to have water issues. They're going to have food issues. And if you look in your local communities right now, I am certain you will find something has changed for the worse. And it is because something in your environment has disappeared. If animals have migrated or your land has started to change, you are starting to see common impacts. I think you could even go to the grocery store and see what you have and what you don't have anymore. So if you look at it over a period of time, what's changed in your life in the last 15, 20 years, you'll say the last 5 years have been pretty dramatic.
And they wouldn't know, most people would not be able to say that was because of climate change.
But well, you hit be able to associate that yet, but they're going to soon, because we're going to have a lot more health issues because of COVID-19.
Right. Well, when you're talking, guys, that's the thing about this book. And I love reading books like this. There's so much there. The one thing you said that surprised me, the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, you said is more conservative now. Why is that?
It is, the scientists know that they're going to take the most conservative outlet when reporting. So
I gotcha.
They know based on the data and the models. So you have 3 different scenarios that you put out, right? So they put the more conservative model out.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Because you got to look at it 3 different perspectives.
And then the other thing I found interesting, going back to our the thing I said before about, hey, let's push this off, let's wait and see. I found it interesting that the scientists at the time said, and if it happens, 1, technology is going to fix it, which we have not found. And 2, people are just going to have to migrate. It's like, do you know what you're saying, dude?
Right. No, they're going to adapt. Right. So I was just doing a conference with Botswana, with the European commissions, and Botswana was on there. So the US, we have to do mitigation strategies. Botswana needs to do adaptation strategies. Yeah, they're not doing anything to induce greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. They're just getting slaughtered by the rest of us that are. China and the US are the 2 biggest polluters. And we have the least, well, at least we have the least population. We have the largest economy. We can still see economic growth and still reduce and change climate. It's fascinating to see the externalities that we do put on.
Sure. And other countries are just like, hey, listen up.
40% of the United States has a passport.
Wow.
40%. And as of 2017, it started to grow a little bit more. So there is more interest for people to travel. If they travel, they will see it. They will become more cultured. And this debate that's happening in the United States about climate change would change.
Because you're an example of that. Not that you didn't see it before, but you've seen the world. Your sister, obviously, she's seen what she's doing now. But I know people that did forego having kids to travel and are very conservative still, because this is their viewpoint, is they go around the world looking at how I'm coming from better. This is, oh my God, I'm so lucky I don't have this. And so I come back, I'm unlucky. We're doing everything right. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So the mentality that we have here,
no conscious consumption.
Yeah, it's almost like the fact thing. I present you with facts. Tribalism. I'm never going to listen to your facts, right? And I think it's the same thing. We're thinking of these answers that come to you and I, seem to make total sense. We're all going to be willing to learn or empathize or see a new light or new perspective. And I'm coming to this, which is very disappointing recently, of that's not really happening. And you see it with family members. I mean, we both have family members that, we present, and you and I, the way we live and you live and whatever. And there's nothing going to, you're not going to do anything to get them to change. And I think that's another book we got to do.
Change is hard. And if you become aware of your collateral damage, you have to act on that. And
what if you don't care?
The conservative mind has too much fear, and they don't want to have the information, because then they're going to have to act and change.
Well, it's fear, and it's God, and I hate that, but it's selfishness too. It's how many times do I hear this argument? Like, you worry about you and your family. That's all you got to worry about. you're a man, take care of your family.
That's too late.
Why are you worried about, and I think that's a big one. That's a big
that goes back
ideology.
to the freedom argument that
Sure.
I find very strange in the US. The mask, take away I'm not wearing a mask, it's my freedom. I don't see the correlation.
There's not even an end goal there.
Huh?
Right. There's not an end goal there.
No.
I don't understand. There's not a big billion-dollar corporation pushing. I mean, that's what I don't get. What is the goal here with that?
That's same argument. It's that distract, cherry pick.
You're right. I think this is an example where just the idea of keep your freedom becomes the forefront of this issue, not the reason, right? So, hey, don't let them tell you that your restaurant can't have smoking. Secondhand smoke is bullshit. Keep your freedom. I think you're right. I think that we just put that in their heads over so many issues that now it's like first thing that pops up is the government does something. I got to keep my freedom. I think you're right.
Cultural tendencies.
Yeah.
No logic. Bully to get what you want out of it, as you see over and over again. But I think it's also the bias bubbles that we have, right? In social media, we're building our own bias bubbles.
Mm-hmm. Oh, big time. Yeah,
and
I get rid of a lot of people.
Get fed that information, the more you're going to act or react to that type of information. So then that in the US, you got 25% that's on the conservative side, you got 25% that's on the other side, and I guess your libertarianism is a little bit in the middle, but there's 60% of us that just want government to work and people to thrive. And that's how majority of the world operates.
Thank God. Well, that's good. That's a good way to end, because that's an optimistic look, and I appreciate that. So thank you, Dee Dee.
We're getting more and more people on board. If you look at what local governments are doing, the mayors and the cities, you got 25 states that are bipartisan that are doing a lot for climate change.
Yeah.
You've got corporations now that are signing the document we are still in. You've got the Climate Coalition, which is made up of unions and of lobbyists and of corporations, industry, that are all working on, okay, well, how do we switch away, shut down coal completely in the United States and transition to carbon sequestration, to storage, to usage? And they know that we can build more jobs and energy efficient jobs in renewables than we can in coal or fossil fuel.
And you brought up something, and every time you talk, the carbon sequestration.
Sequestration.
Yes. is that newer in how to handle climate change? Because I'm starting to get into that within the last year.
It's not new. We're listening to the science.
Yeah, because it was never something that was out there as far as lay people like me, though, following the science, right? And now it is, because
startup companies do it, so it's becoming more into the mainstream line.
Yeah, because it makes total sense. The amount you can put back into the soil, right? Or with seaweed in the oceans, or planting, just making sure fields have freaking green in it. The amount you can suck back into that soil and
wetlands,
and create the better soil instead of desertification.
Yep.
Yeah. So those things. There's a good. Did you watch that documentary? Huh? The one about
it's soil.
The earth. Yeah, the soil. I forget what it's called.
I thought that was a really good one to show the mechanisms of anthropogenic climate change, because if people don't start understanding the basics that are happening behind it, then they can't make the changes to improve it. And I think that documentary did a very good job of showing those levers and those mechanisms.
And it just shows too that, I thought was an interesting part, because I showed it to students, and when I show, I pause and talk, and they hate it. But one of the things was just to look at, when we study Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent, and you look at it, and these kids are like, Fertile Crescent, it's all desert, Well, that's what happens, is we create these deserts where we use and abuse the soil, and you can't use it anymore. It becomes desert. All that land that we look at as the Middle East was arable, good soil at one point, and this is what we're creating in the United States. But we can fix it. We can fix that. And that's I guess my thing is this is something you can't put the smoke back in the coal, whatever. But the sequestration,
How about do it this way? Carbon fixing.
Carbon fixing. I like that. Thank you.
That makes it easier. So you don't have to do
it's an optimistic answer that makes sense, and I love it because I felt good after watching that. And
we can put it in the air, we can take it back out, and those are ways to do it. Those are methods to do it. So
awesome. Well, I got to go because we keep it to under an hour.
All right.
You're awesome.
It's been fun talking to you.
You too. Will you do it? Will you do it again?
Yes, but I think who's this book for? I think this book is for like the young person that wants to get into politics or the young person that wants to be in lobbying.
Yeah, that's usually what I ask is why it's an important book. I think it's I don't know. I think it's a good question. Who is this book for? Gosh, because when you come out of it, it makes you feel sane because you realize all the craziness that's fighting, and you can look at all those people that argued at you over the years, and you're like, man, do you not realize all the bombardment on you? I think, but I don't know who the book is for. It was for me because it just made me see their strategy behind it, because you feel gaslighted, right? You feel gaslit all this time. Like is this really a debate? Yeah. Like how am I just the one that gets this? Why doesn't everybody get this? How am I the only one fooled? And then you realize that these guys were geniuses. So I blame the public to a point, but I don't, because they were pretty smart and they got the mass media to go along, just like the mass media is now with Trump not freaking giving up and stuff. The mass media is going right along with it. So you can't blame the people 100%. They push it along. I don't know who the book is for. That's a great question. Who do you think? You said younger.
I think that young person that wants to go into politics. I think the person that maybe is a little bit old, like late 20s, early 30s, maybe going in transition from politics into lobbyist. I think someone that is in
a lobbyist,
a larger corporation that's in middle management should read this book.
I think the people that should read it most won't. I guess that's why I say I don't know who.
And those of us that
the people that should read it most are the ones that were fooled. That's who should read it most. The people that should read it most.
They'll never read it though.
Exactly. Those are the ones that need it most. The ones that still say, I still don't believe secondhand smoke causes cancer.
If they're
still out there.
If your emotional intelligence is that you want to stay unaware or uneducated, then you're not going to read this book.
Right. But I think that's who I'd give the book to first, is somebody that said, hey, give me a book to read. Nonfiction. Then I'd be like, all right, here you go. Right?
I would love to see the reaction to that one.
Yeah. No, thanks. Won't happen. All right, Dee. Thank you. Be in touch. And you too. And I will give you another. We'll decide on another book together.
Book. Sure. That was all right. Take care.
Thanks, Dee. Bye.